Good evening, Valparaiso. Welcome to the show. My name is Hannah Trueblood. I am the host of Conversations, and today I have a pretty amazing guest. But before I get started with her, I wanted to talk about a couple of important community events that are being held, one of which is a WVLP fundraiser. That is going to be this Friday, July 11th, from 3:30 to 8 at the Butterfield Pavilion. We are going to have some amazing Mexican fare catered by El Cantorito in Chesterton. And we're going to have some great music, some great community, amazing food, and all the proceeds for those $20 tickets are going to go to support this radio station that you're listening to right now. And that is awesome. So you can purchase your tickets in advance. You can also get them from anyone at the station, myself included. They're $20, 12 and under eats free. And the other event is something that is very near and dear to my heart that I have been attended a couple in my last couple years. It's called the Possibility Festival. And this is a free community event that is going to be focused around just connection. You know, we're in such a disconnected society where we can communicate the most, but we've connected the least. And that is coincidentally right in line with the rise of the mental health epidemic, with suicide rates tripling in our youth, and mental disconnection and isolation just making people feel like they're alone on their island, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I have attended a couple of these events in the past, and they have been very impactful, very life-changing for me. And so I want to share that with my community, because you all deserve to know and understand what it feels like to be alive, and to know that you're not alone, and that the problems are affecting everyone, and the solutions are free. It doesn't have to be this $1 million program or anything like that to feel better and be better. So that's what the Possibility Festival is all about. You can learn more about it and register at possibilityfestival.com. And without further ado, now that I'm done with my event plugging, I would like to plug a very special friend, a wonderful person. Her name is Serena Fugate. We met like 10 years ago, I think it was, working at Starbucks. Yeah. So welcome to the show. We are going to be talking about some really interesting topics. Serena is an incredible advocate in the community. She has earned her bachelor's degree in social work from IU. She has recently gotten her MSW, her master's degree, from Boston University. Congratulations, grad.
Thanks, Hannah.
And she is somebody who doesn't just talk about change. She goes out there and makes stuff happen. You might know her from her advocacy work with The Caring Place, with the We Make Indiana, which is a housing affordability advocate, and we can talk a little bit about that, or at her job at CoAction, where she's been a housing advocate herself as a professional. So she does a lot of really great stuff, is a big person within the grassroots movement, and she is an amazing mother, and just all of the great things.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you here and to talk about some great stuff. So looking back on those past 10 years, Serena, from when you were taking orders in a drive-thru at Starbucks to today, sitting here having this conversation, what do you think has shifted most in how you see yourself and your role in the world?
I have a lot more confidence in my ability and my strengths. And as far as how I see the world, I feel like instead of waiting for the world to come to me, I'm going out there and I'm making change. Because so many times we feel powerless, that we can't do anything, and we see everything around us and we get discouraged. I think going back to school for me changed my life. So I think anything's possible.
Tell me more about that, about going back to school and why that was such a pivotal moment for you.
Yeah, so I raised my son mostly by working at Starbucks. I started working there when he was 2.5 years old, and I left when he was almost 11 years old.
Wow.
So he kind of grew up there, and the people I worked with, including you, saw him grow up as well. But my hands started giving out on me. I was also serving. I was always working 2 jobs. And living in Porter County, that was just not, I couldn't live comfortably even working those 2 jobs. So I had originally gone to college right out of high school, but I ended up dropping out. And I'd always wanted to go back to school. And I remember when I applied to IUN, I didn't even have a car, but I knew that I was going to do it somehow. And I knew that if I didn't do it right then, that I would never do it. And everything just kind of fell into place. And so I went back in 2019, and then the pandemic hit. So that was a whole nother journey.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was the perfect moment. Like I said, I'd had surgery on my hands, and I just my body couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I totally can relate to that. I mean, being in the service industry for 10 years, part of the reason why I was really looking for an out was my body is not made for that like long time on your feet labor, like having the joint disorder and stuff. Being a waitress it's diabolical.
It's hard work. Being a server is hard work.
Seriously, shout out to all the servers, the bartenders, the coffee makers, the people that make that world go around, because you are working your butts off, and
for sure,
it does not go unappreciated. Yeah. So when you were fresh out of high school and you're going into college, and then life happens and you're dropping out of college and you're kind of staring your new reality in the face of like, okay, what's next? Something that I've always thought was, troubling, especially for women. I was raised that like always told that, you gotta do more and you gotta be more to just be seen and heard half as much.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you, kind of sitting with all of these changes and then making that decision to kind of go back to school? Was that something that was kind of in your mind of why you wanted to go and get that education?
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel seen or heard. I felt like I was kind of lost, just making my way. I was surviving, not really doing anything else except for raising my son. And I wanted him to see me do more than that.
Right.
When he was young, he would say, "Mom, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a baker?" Because he could tell that I wasn't happy working at Starbucks. Don't get me wrong, I loved Starbucks up until 5 years into it.
Yeah.
But then, working a drive-through and dealing with Starbucks orders, it wasn't my passion.
Right.
But going back to school, I knew that I had things that I wanted to do, and I've always gravitated towards helping people. And actually, when I first went back, I was deciding whether I should do criminal justice or social work. And now looking back on that, it's funny that I would have even considered criminal justice.
Yeah, why is that?
Just because I don't think that I would be able to make real change working within that system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the social work idea, that came from just really wanting to get in there and get your hands dirty and actually make something happen?
Yeah, I had seen a lot of people suffer from substance use disorder around me in my lifetime. And I remember the first time I actually thought that I wanted to be a social worker. I was with one of my family members taking her to rehab. And I remember the man that came out, he was very understanding. She really felt seen and heard. He made me feel comfortable for the first time in that journey with her. And I thought, I want to do what he does.
Yeah.
And he was a social worker.
That's awesome.
So,
wow. Yeah. Is this still is this something that happened locally? Are you coworkers now?
We're not coworkers now. No, this was actually in Chicago at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Wow. So, talking about how your son, he was just a young boy, but he was kind of able to recognize that this wasn't it and that there was something more for you. Talk a little bit about your experience of, going through this period of self-discovery while also being responsible for raising and caring for another person. It's not just you.
Right.
You've got you and your son. So how did you navigate that?
So, when I first went back to school, my son had just started high school. So he was, I think, 14 or 15. And that was a job in itself because he was in every choir. He was in the Indiana All-State Honor Choir. But I look back and I did so much. I worked full time and I went to school full time, and then I did my internship on top of all of those things. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't have had it any other way because, my son, he's a hard worker, and he saw how hard I did work, and that things don't just come to you.
Yeah.
You're not entitled to anything in this life, and you really have to get up and make things happen.
Yeah.
But navigating life, raising Devin, we were like best friends. It was just him and I.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been hard since he moved out.
Yeah.
Of kind of like rediscovering who I am and who I am now, and trying not to be too overbearing as a mom.
Yeah. He's still local though, right? So
yeah, he lives in
he still
Porter
comes
County.
over for dinner.
He
And,
does.
Yeah.
It's hard to get him to text back, but he does.
Yeah. If you're hearing this, Devin, text back your mom, please.
Yes, Devin, please.
Just send a little message. You call into the show, anything, just check in, say hi. Yeah, raising children and then raising yourself is like it's so difficult. And as a young parent who's had to kind of work through in a lot of those things as well, I can definitely relate to that. And I feel like that story is so common, but not often truthfully told. I feel like a lot of women and mothers, we really try to put our best foot forward and our face forward so that nobody knows what we've actually got going on under the surface. Oh, yeah. When in reality, there's the chances are that whoever you're bumping into or whoever you're involved with knows someone or is someone themselves that is in a similar or relatable situation.
Right. So,
with your work and your involvement in the mental health space and those kind of things considered, what are kind of some of the most common agitators that are causing these problems that you think, and what are some of the best things that have worked for people, getting out of those situations and into a more stable environment?
That's a pretty loaded question.
I know. I put a lot in there.
So going back to the beginning of that question, you said, what do you think are the agitators or things that kind of pave the way for someone to be a single mom and do everything? Is that what?
Just in general of like, people just that are in mental crisis or are experiencing substance, just any of those things that, cause a person to end up in situations where they're going to be seeing a social worker or they're going to be, getting help from coaction or any of those things.
So, I mean, even social workers need social workers. That's a big thing of social workers need therapy just as much as anyone else, if not more, because of the amount of trauma that we hear and that we have to process. But something that I've noticed is people living in poverty, they're usually the ones that are hit the most by behavioral diagnosis because it's usually gone unchecked and it becomes a crisis before anyone's even aware of it. They don't have access to health care. They don't have access to daycare. They don't have access to housing. And housing is health care. So if you're homeless or you're houseless and you have schizophrenia, your life's going to be a whole lot different than someone that has schizophrenia and has a place to stay or that has support systems. But that doesn't mean that people that have money don't experience those things. And it all comes down to support systems and family, people that care about you and love you and accept you for who you are and know that's your baseline.
Yeah. So, I mean, we see there's so many people that feel like they're on an island and just are the only ones out there. What advice would you have for somebody who's listening right now who may have checked a box that we just mentioned of somebody that, may need something like that, but they feel like there's no resources? Where do they go? What do they do?
Wow. So locally there are, as far as if they know someone that's in crisis at the moment or that needs help, I think getting that person to realize that they need help is the first step. So if that person's willing to receive the help and admit that that they're struggling, that's the first step, and that's probably the biggest step. And then getting them to those resources depending on what kind of crisis they're in. If it were immediate crisis, we do have the mobile crisis units in Porter County through Porter Stark. They can go to the hospital. They can, it depends on like what programs they're in. So for co-action, I'm a housing advocate that helps people on permanent supportive housing. So if someone like that is struggling, they have access to case managers like me or family members. And if you don't know what to do, call 211. Call, is it 988?
That's the suicide?
Yeah, that's the suicide hotline. So there are resources out there, and Porter County also has that Porter County Helping that Sam Burgett helped make, and it's just a list of resources. So you can go on there if you need mental health resources, you can check and see what's available in your area.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I feel like we definitely have quite a lot more collaboration between, I don't know if you would agree with that, but at least a little more collaboration just between the different resources to help each other be visible. And that's definitely something that I would love to see even more of, because that does seem like there's a lot out there that could be useful, but there's also a lot of red tape and a lot of hoops to jump through, and sometimes it's tough to even find the information. So I mean,
don't get me wrong. There are resources out there, but also depending on your insurance, if you have insurance, if you don't have insurance, all of these things ultimately come down to the systems that are in place.
Yeah.
And those systems are broken.
Yes. Well, you made a great point just now about the resources available and just the type of insurance, if you even have insurance. Right. This is not a political show.
I knew it was going to get political.
But we're not going to get real technically political. We're not going to speak in favor of against any candidates. But there's such a there's the what's happening right now on a federal level, and that's trickling down into state politics. Is we're seeing passages of bills that are cutting funding for Medicaid, Medicare. Those programs are going to be causing a lot of rural hospitals to close, and our property tax caps, and making the municipalities and the counties do more with less, and all of those sorts of things. And a lot of that comes from a misconception, I think, of what these services actually provide and who the people are that are dependent on these services. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe diffuse some common myths about Medicaid recipients, or people who are in need of these sorts of services that you're referencing that are unfortunately going to be on the chopping block because of what's going on right now?
Yeah, so I think, even as early as January, our new Governor Braun, he cut, DEI from all of our, he took it out and he replaced it with, I believe it was MEI. I can't really remember what that stands for. But, and then he recently made it, our schools in Indiana can no longer use DEI. And that in itself is a big deal. Mm-hmm. And that causes, that is a huge misconception right there, because, sorry, I'm kind of getting off topic, but as far as everything that's going on, especially the big ugly bill, I'm not going to call it beautiful, but yes, many people are going to lose their health care. I work with them currently. Your mother, your father, they're going to lose their health care. They're not going to be able to get their prescriptions filled. They already can't afford to do so to begin with. It's going to be a crisis for our country.
Sure.
It's going to be unsafe. People that will not be able to get their medication will be walking around. And it's just so hard to get people medicated in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then if they lose their Medicaid and Medicare, because I have clients that have both, I don't know what that will look like for our country. But as far as misconceptions about people that receive those, I've heard even on the local level, politicians talk about those people being supported by government.
Yeah.
So, for instance, someone that has, they're schizoaffective, they're bipolar and schizophrenic, with a developmental disability, meaning they can't read or write. Mm-hmm. They couldn't choose who their parents were. They were born into this life with those ailments. And the misconception is that person, is not supposed to be supported by the government. But in reality, I mean, we want to take care of people like that. Mm-hmm. We want to live in a healthy society. We want to make sure they're housed. And we want to make sure that they're fed, so that they're not walking around out there causing harm to themselves or others.
Right.
Right.
A big one that I hear, and I mean, has been spoken, like you said, I mean, local politicians that have been and are in power have used these terminology about, if you build it, they will come, We don't need to, provide any more support. We don't need more homeless shelters or affordable housing, because if we build that type of infrastructure, then, as you said, those people will come and then they'll be in our communities. But the reality of the situation is that people that need help are already here.
Yeah, they're here.
And helping the lowest is going to promote a better experience for everybody, from the lowest of low to the highest of high.
Right, and that also puts a huge strain on our police force. It puts a huge strain on our mental health providers like Porter Stark. It's going to put a huge strain on our hospitals in the area, because if someone can't go to the doctor, they're going to show up at the hospital. It's going to put a strain on all of our first responders as well. It's going to be a domino effect.
Yeah.
But like you said, those people are already living in our community, and we would have a healthier community if we did have more attainable housing.
Right.
Because right now, with the zoning codes, it's very restrictive, and we can't really, big developers can come in and and build here, but we've been told that there are reasons why we can't have fourplexes and triplexes in certain areas, but I don't believe those narratives when I'm told those things, like, oh, it's because of off-street parking or sewage. The zoning code dates back to the 1920s.
Yep. I'm on the board of zoning.
Yeah, I know
so
you are.
yeah, so it's always interesting to me reading through and learning about the way that our city is zoned, and just the UDO in general. And from a practical perspective, we don't want like random carousel shaped houses in the middle of town. Like there's got to be some level of reasonableness, but I think it is it's to a fault. I would agree with that, and it just kind of adds to that whole red tape, like what I mentioned. Yeah, there's services, there's things, but you got to go through all of this unnecessary bureaucracy to access it. Yeah, and that's the same thing for just getting the base level of like, can we build this here? Right. We need it. Why can't we build it here? And that's a question that is very important, and one of the things that I love about you is that you're showing up and you're asking those questions, and you're demanding, some more accountability for making this happen for people.
I think that things have just been done the same way in Porter County for so long, and that no one's challenged that or been afraid to challenge that, and what that looks like when someone does.
Yeah. Let's talk more about what that looks like when someone does, because you are.
It's not welcomed. I don't think you attended the housing assembly.
I was at the first one.
Okay.
I don't know if the second one has happened yet.
So were you at the housing symposium?
No. That's the one that was at the church.
The housing assembly was at the church at Christ Lutheran
That one
Church.
I wasn't at. The one that I was at was at City Hall.
Okay. So the housing assembly, it was a call to action. Our faith leaders came together, and there were some testimonies. I gave my testimony, and we asked Bill Oding, the city administrator, if he would be willing to meet with us, and if he would agree to pursue funds from House Bill 1005. And at the housing assembly, that was agreed upon. Since then, Bill Oding has told us that they are planning to redo the UDO in Porter County. Yeah. He said it's going to take about a year. But he did say they will not be pursuing any funds from House Bill 1005, really? Due to the fact that he does not think that government should take care of people, and that we should be taking care of our neighbors. And quote unquote, he said when he was a little boy, his mom used to put food out on the back porch and feed the homeless. So that was hard to hear. Because there are so many flawed things that could happen if you just put food out on your back porch.
Yeah,
you would have people coming to your home all day. Also, what kind of food would it be?
And is it any good when it's been sitting out?
Right.
What's the level of...
And if it's canned food, they don't have a can opener. There are all kinds of things wrong with that statement. But so they will not be pursuing any funds from House Bill 1005, which would help with infrastructure.
So you're telling me, and you're telling us right now, that there is money available from a House bill from the legislature that will allow municipalities and counties to pursue funds to help offset some of these costs, and we are not doing it.
Well, they don't plan to. That doesn't mean that things can't change in the future.
Yes.
I mean, because the bill was just passed in May. So I don't know what the future holds, but we might have to wait 2 years.
Now, would you agree that it's easy for people in positions of power to say, yeah, I'll look into it, and then they don't, and then you follow up, and then they say, yeah, well, sorry, maybe next time. Do you feel that public pressure is something that works really well in those situations? It maybe helps incentivize those people to rethink their positioning on whether or not they pursue it?
I think it can.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of people you have coming together. If you have like-minded individuals that kind of want to hold people accountable and they want to know, why aren't we pursuing these funds? Why can't we create more attainable housing in Valparaiso?
Yeah, those are great questions, and I really encourage anyone listening to really ponder that and think about that. And what could those possible answers be? And if you're listening, do you have any answers to those questions? Do you have any ideas to bring to the table? Because you might have the winning ticket that finally clicks with somebody, or that finally is that missing piece of the puzzle. And it's because it really takes a village to be able to accomplish these things. And one thing I love about like public radio here, WVLP 103.1, and with the things that you're involved with and what we're talking about, is it's about really community, for one, and for two, really taking that extra step and doing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because that little bit more, deciding to go back to school, just going a little bit further and tackling that task, and going a little bit further by inquiring and following up with our city manager and attending meetings and brainstorming with other like-minded people. Those, you never know what little thing is going to click and really make a big impact.
Right.
So we have, most of our listenership is local, but not necessarily. There's global people listening in on the stream. How can we, as a community, and they, within our community and their own communities, not just complain about problems or point out problems? What are some ways that we can get some solutions to fix the problems?
So yeah, a lot of people come to their city officials and complain about what's happening, and they don't want something. They don't realize that they can go to their city officials and tell them what they do want.
Right.
So that's the first part of it, is what do you want? We make Indiana also, they're not just for housing. That was just something when they came in, they said, what's important to you? And as a community and the people that came, they said housing. We all need housing. But they do other things as well. So show up, tell them what you do want, and then think of solutions amongst yourselves. I feel like going out and getting my master's degree in social work, that education gave me this armor that I have. Whereas before I felt powerless, and now I know that, it takes one person to kind of stand up and say, hey, we need to change things here. And that one person, of course, teaches other people how to lead as well. So in doing so, in Valparaiso, I know that the couple of city council meetings that I did attend, most of the people showing up are telling them things they don't want.
Right.
They're putting pressure on them. They don't want those things. I rarely see people showing up and saying, and what about this? How about we build some housing that would allow for the elderly to live on the first floor, and then we can have businesses on the second floor. Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
I like that idea, actually.
So that they can age in place, and they can stay in their homes and downsize from a big home that they would have and they can't move out of because they can't afford. And then, what if it was a grocery store on top or something of that nature? They would really not ever have to go anywhere.
Top down. And the grocery store could have a rooftop garden.
Yeah.
That then the people that are living in that community can just ride the elevator up, pick their cucumbers, and go down. And there we go. Now they're aging in place with a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
If any developers or investors are wanting to get in on this, let us know. I love that. I mean, innovation is so important. And innovation happens when you speak up. It doesn't happen when you just stew in your own madness.
Right.
Or, stress yourself out to the point of procrastination. And with with that statement, I think that kind of leads into another question just in this same realm. When the weight of all this injustice feels overwhelming, how do you get out of that, and how do you move forward and keep going?
So practicing self-care daily as a social worker, that's something that has been pounded into my head since I started the program 6 years ago. You can't process stress, and you can't really see forward unless you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So I like to go hiking. I like to be out in nature. I also like to go to the gym. These things, just taking care of yourself at the end of the day and making sure you do that every single day can help take some of that hopelessness away. And then, of course, having support systems, telling people when you need help, because that's a big thing. I never used to tell anybody when I needed help. I thought I could do it all by myself. But guess what? Nobody can.
You're calling me out, girl.
Yeah, nobody can do it by themselves. Even if you think you can, you need to speak up. And there are people out there, they don't know what you're going through. They have no idea unless you tell them. So being willing to know that you need people. Yeah. And as a community, we need each other. So it's really hard right now as a social worker because I feel like this is just a very hard time to be a social worker. Not like being a social worker isn't hard, but with all of the cuts and everything, DEI being taken away, I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion is everything I've learned as a social worker. It is the root. Social justice, that is one of our values. So kind of working in these systems, and you have to decide, am I going to implement this policy that goes against my social work values, but also I'm not going to have a job at the end of the day if I do. So it's hard to navigate, and it's a case by case, and there's a lot of gray areas in social work. Yeah.
I mean, there already were. Now it's just going to be even more.
This is something we talked a lot about in my ethics course. Was a lot of people that I was in class with, they were working with immigrant children and immigrant families, and they all said, I would be willing to go to jail for my clients. Like, that's what we've decided. I think, a lot of people at Boston University are very like-minded individuals, and we kind of, we're in this to help people and to advocate for them, and at the end of the day, it's not for a paycheck, and it's not to keep our housing. Right. So that's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, well, that's passion right there. You said at the beginning of the show that you after a few years at Starbucks, you kind of got tired of the old espresso making thing because it just wasn't a passion, but really standing up for what you believe in and helping a real person through a real crisis is your passion. Yeah. And that is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think Starbucks kind of set me up to be a social worker, honestly. I don't know if you remember what it was like, but you have people come in every single day, you learn their names, you know their drinks, you talk to them about their children. Yeah. You let them feel seen and heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I still see people out there that are like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while at Starbucks. I'm like, it's been over a decade since I've been there, but I was such a staple behind the bar.
Oh my gosh. I know. I've run into people like, if you remember Carl, like I ran into him at Target like a couple years ago, and he's like, didn't you? I was like, didn't you? And I mean, there's shout out to Dave Phillips. He's a friend of mine, and he would come in to Starbucks every day for his coffee and like the Clover machine, his thing. And I still remember that. And it's funny that a lot of the same people that we served at Starbucks are still kind of here and active members of the community, and it's kind of cool.
It is cool. I actually went through the Starbucks drive-thru today. Yeah. And I saw Jen sitting outside. Aw. I was like, wow.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Mary. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, Mary. Mary is still to this day the sweetest lady I've ever met.
I love her. She's the best.
Hope you're listening, Mary.
Yeah, I hope you are, Mary.
Love you.
I'll send this little clip to you just as a little...
Aw.
No, I mean, and that's the thing, too, is that people that work in the service industry. I want to talk about this with you for a second because you have come from that background, and we in the service, members of the service industry, we're not making $100,000 a year. We'd be lucky to make 50. That would be a great gig. Yeah. But the people that are taking your coffee order and are cleaning up after you when you leave the restaurant, they are good, amazing people that have full lives and experiences going on. And it's very often, especially, in the topic of housing and affordable healthcare and things, that's exactly who we are targeting when we're saying that they don't deserve to be a part of this.
Right.
And that drives me nuts, when we avoid the topic of reasonably priced housing, is how I like to call it, on the local level, and that, we can incentivize high-end developers to come in and build $1 million houses, and we can annex property for large-scale developers to come in and put up a bunch of 2-story homes and things like that. But when it comes to providing the housing for the people who literally make the city the reason that people want to be here, it's astounding to me. So, and I know you feel the same. Yeah. So for people in that area, working in the service industry, or maybe gig workers, musicians, anybody who's, making in that range where you're falling through the cracks and you're not feeling supported by the community. I mean, what can we do? How can we help them, and how can we encourage them to stick around?
Yeah,
And
I was one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that I waited on you at Perea.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. So I worked at Perea for a long time as well.
Yeah.
But that's how I supported myself. And no one that worked there with me lived in Porter County, with the exception of the owner.
Yeah.
They all lived in other places that were more affordable, and that had more attainable housing. But, I think that if we had more reasonably priced housing, is how you put it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If we had more of that, especially along like the bus route and the walking areas, so downtown Valparaiso, then people that didn't have vehicles, they'd be able to walk to work. They wouldn't have to have a car payment, all these things that go along with providing for yourself.
Right.
Because it's pretty much like, if you don't have a car, you're probably going to be homeless.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. If
Right.
you don't have a house and you don't have a car, I mean, a lot of people that don't have a house and they do have a car, they sleep in their car.
Right.
But what can we do to make those people be able to live here? Was that the question?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we want to be. That's what we're working for with We Make Indiana, holding our elected officials accountable. And we want to know what are we doing? What are you going to work with us? How can we do this to make it a healthier city for everyone? Mm-hmm. But so we need more housing. That's it.
Yeah.
We need housing that people can afford.
It's a big one.
So how do you make that happen? That is the ultimate question.
Yeah, exactly. It's a conundrum, and it's not just here. I mean, that's like a global issue. I mean, that's something that is, housing inequality has been a major problem in society for a long time. But, and that is, it's hard sometimes to really feel like there even is a solution when you like zoom out and go, well, this is so much bigger than anything, even if we were to solve this small problem and be able to provide, one level housing for our aging community. Well, now there's all these other people, and how do we prioritize who deserves what more and when?
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of get lost in like that.
Well, everybody deserves it.
There you go.
Everybody.
So how do you prioritize, because you can't, but can you? Can you prioritize everyone while still, making it to where it's equitable for everybody? Because you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, until all people are equal, no one is equal.
Well, I think as far as the original question, talking about the people that fell through the cracks. So like me, I was working, but I wasn't qualifying for any benefits like SNAP or health insurance, but also I couldn't afford to live. And then, so I'm one of those people. I think that those people should be prioritized.
Yeah.
But now then you think about it, the people on the lower end as well, they're not being prioritized. So the problem is just going to be compounded.
Right.
But everybody deserves housing. Everybody deserves a chance at having an equitable future. So I think, what happened during the pandemic, a lot of big realtor companies came in and bought up a lot of apartment complexes in Porter County.
Yep.
And raised the rent hundreds of dollars. And just as Jesse Harper said during the housing assembly, he sees people like that in his office every day. that are being evicted because their rent was raised, so far since 2020, it's been raised $400 or $500.
Right.
So that's one thing that they talked about at the housing symposium was how to regulate the market instead of just leaving it up to the market.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, and you were there, she was talking about that means we need housing on every level. So
every level.
But that also means having less restrictions with zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an endless list, but it can be done. Pick one of those things, because we just mentioned like 5 or 6 different touch points in there. Pick one of those things that are interesting to you. Do a little bit more research and follow up. Get involved. Come to that next city council meeting and talk about it. Come to the next housing meeting. Come to the next, reach out to We Make Indiana and get involved in that. Reach out to any of these organizations that we've discussed, because they are doing very important, good work and are overstretched and underfunded and could use all the help that we can get.
Yeah.
So I want to touch back. I made a note of this.
Okay.
And I wanted to circle back to this because I love what you said, that social workers need social workers too, and that, caregivers need therapy. I want to give a quick little shout out to my brother. He lives in Colorado. He got his degree in psychology from IU also. I don't know if you know my brother.
I'm friends with him on Facebook,
so
I see his posts. Yeah, I follow his journey.
He got his master's degree at Naropa in Boulder, and he is doing what he does a lot of work in is caregiving for caregivers.
Okay.
And
awesome.
A lot of that came from like Alzheimer's and dementia care.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of really great work in there. But yeah, his whole thing is caretakers need care too. And that is such often overlooked piece of the puzzle, that the people who are solving the world's problems are drowning in them.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of expected to keep swimming. But everyone is climbing on top of you is a life raft.
Yeah.
And that is a common thing to see burnout and, other issues, and that leads down all kinds of stuff. How can people in this industry care more for themselves to be able to show up and be more present for the people that they're caring for?
So definitely there is a lot of burnout in social services and showing up for other people day in and day out, because I always like to joke around with my coworkers at CoAction, and I'm like, I need a case manager. I do.
Yeah.
I need to call the hospital about this bill that I have, but I just haven't had time because I'm helping others all day long. So that's kind of like an ongoing joke, but it's really not. That's what I'm saying. When you need help, you need to reach out to your family. You need to reach out to your loved ones. And sometimes just talk to people and process it. But something I think that is vital to a social worker is therapy. It's actually kind of like what changed my life. I was already in school. I was about junior year of my bachelor's degree, and my friend Brandy came in to eat at Pareja one day, and I was not having a great time. And I had just broken up with my boyfriend, and she said, Serena, I'm going to refer you to this therapist. And I said, okay. And I called her, and she was amazing. Her name was Amanda. I saw her for about 2 years, and she really empowered me to see my strengths and to know that the things that I was experiencing in school and my internship, I shouldn't experience them alone. That I needed to talk about those things. And not just with anyone, with her. Because there is something, trauma dumping. You come home and you have all of this trauma that you've experienced and you want to tell someone, but the average person, you probably shouldn't be telling them, because you don't also want to expose them to the trauma that you have been exposed to all day long. But it is vital that you take care of yourself, and like I said, self-care. So that looks different for everyone. And I'm not talking like, oh, get yourself a chocolate bar and watch a movie. Right. I mean, like, really take care of yourself. Like, you're drinking water, drinking water, going for a walk, being out in nature. I like to ground myself. So definitely when I go on my hikes, I go barefoot,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't do it, but I sometimes I literally will go out in my backyard and just walk around barefoot because I need to touch some grass. Yeah. That's like a real thing.
I'm wearing my grounding sandals, so there's copper on the bottom, and I have them on right now.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I got into grounding probably about 2 years ago. I bought a grounding mat that I sleep with. And then I noticed that when I was at the dunes and I was going barefoot, it just gave me so much more energy. And I came home feeling energized, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And I had just so happened to watch a documentary that my therapist told me about called Grounding. I think it's called like the Earth Movie. I can't remember the exact title, but the concept is you're touching the dirt or the grass and you're barefoot, and that those electromagnetic waves, they're gonna align you're gonna be aligned to the earth. And we wear synthetic shoes and we walk around with those all day, and we're not grounded. So when you're not grounded, you're not going to process stress. Your body is not going to process everything that you need to. So you're going to be healthier if you take your shoes off, you run around in the grass. It's more than just being active and getting sun. It's touching the earth and kind of like coming back to the earth.
It's where we came from, and that's where we're going to end up. So you might as well have a good relationship with it. What do you feel that in the last few years of just really getting into that and being involved in self-care and kind of committing to that, do you feel that there has been a difference, not just in your own mood and clarity and just ability to process stress, but do you also feel like since integrating those into your daily life that you're able to do what you do better and serve people to a higher capacity?
So I do notice on, at the end of the week, or say I didn't get enough sleep the night before, and I have I'm just like, I just need to get through this day. Those are always the days where I have something really unexpected. I have a really difficult situation to deal with at work, and I always remind myself, okay, well, you didn't take care of yourself last night, and that's why you're having an even harder time processing it. But yeah, when you're alert and you show up for your client and you're healthy, you're going to see things that you didn't see before. You're going to be able to handle them screaming at you and kind of expecting you to change their whole lives. Because that is what's happening right now with the cuts that are being made. I get a lot of calls from clients that are worried they're going to lose their housing. They're like, oh, he's cutting Section 8, but there's a lot of anxiety with that.
Yeah.
And they look to me to make sure everything's going to be okay. So if I'm going into that home or I'm going into that client meeting without being okay myself, it's really hard to convince someone else that they're going to be okay as well.
Right. And they can feel it. They know.
Oh, yeah.
And
they do. They can sense like the slightest hesitation or a deep breath or if you're unsure.
Yeah. And that's, I feel like, a really great, it's just such good advice for anyone and everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a social worker or a teacher or a mom or retired or a child. All of these things that you just mentioned, drinking water and taking care of yourself and going out in nature and breath work and good quality sleep, all of those things add up to a really just a more stable way of existence, and that little extra bit of stability can make a really big difference in how you show up for others and how you show up for yourself. And I feel like, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, one of my favorite quotes of all time is, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. And I have this hat and it says set the standard. Okay. And it's just that whole concept of that is about, in everything that's going on the macro level and even coming down to the micro level, there's so many things out of our control. Like, we can't control the fact that these cuts are happening. We can't control the fact that, climate change is devastating our world. And we can't control the fact that, people, that have the power are choosing not to help the people who need it the most. But what we can control, for the most part, is what we consume, food, and so for the most part, food and like what you consume online, water, hydration, just breath, sleep, those sorts of things. Of course, there's situations where it's not as easy. Other people have it easier, and you have more access to things, of course. But at a base level, if every single individual can focus on bettering themselves, then that is going to have a ripple effect on bettering the people around them. Because if you decide to cut up a cucumber instead of a Snickers bar, for example, like we'll say like comparably priced items, and we're not talking about like, oh, if you eat a Snickers bar, you're a bad person. We're not going there. I'm just saying like a simple two things here. If you're choosing to eat that cucumber as your snack instead of the Snickers bar, you're going to have more energy, which means you're going to be able to do. And then that person that's sitting next to you is going to go, oh, wow, they're doing that. Like maybe I could do that.
Yeah.
Or, if you're, whatever it is, if you go out and you touch some grass on your lunch break, your coworker might see that and be like,
they do.
Huh.
They have
and then, maybe they don't touch grass on their lunch break, but maybe when they go home, they step outside and they realize, oh, wow, this actually feels good. Or if you start pick up a book and you start to read a book, and then whatever that is in that book could help you help someone else, or someone might see that you're reading and be inspired to read themselves, or like all of those different things, those little tiny micro choices that we can make, and that can help other people make those choices too. That's what's going to build our community and make it stronger and more resilient against these uncontrollable things that are happening to us. What do you think about that?
So that reminds me a lot of what I learned in my community organizing class, because I do have a macro degree in social work. That's why I went to Boston.
Okay.
But the big thing was, you kind of like you're talking about personal excellence. Like you cannot make anything else better. But you have control over what you do as a person and how you feel about yourself.
Right.
So, seeing your strengths, using those strengths, knowing that you have power and that you are worth it and that you deserve everything.
Yes.
You deserve food, you deserve housing, you deserve love. Once you realize that, then people will see that, and like you said, you're modeling for others. Like you can go out there and talk everything that you want, but it's the acts that you do every day. It's showing up. Like when people see me standing barefoot in the grass at work, they call me a hippie, but yeah, they see that and then they want to know about it. And they're asking me like, oh, what's grounding? And then, yeah, it is a ripple effect, because when, like me, getting my degrees and going to therapy and believing in myself and finding that confidence, is empowering others. I wouldn't be able to be doing this work had I not found myself.
It's incredible.
And the work that I'm doing is directly affected by the amount of self-care that I practice daily.
Absolutely. And it's not easy, and it's not always perfect.
But like I said, you have to tell people no. Sometimes you have to say, oh, I know I had plans with you Friday night, but I'm actually exhausted. And right now I'm just going to stay home and take a nap.
Exactly.
And that's showing up for yourself.
You don't owe anyone anything.
Right.
And you have to, if you are not taking care of yourself and really doing those things for yourself, you're never going to be able to do whatever you want to do for others, or, provide in the way that you could. And that's such an important lesson. And what you said was so good, that you deserve food. You deserve good quality food. You deserve housing. You deserve good quality housing.
Right.
Like, those mindset shifts can be life-changing for people. I mean, I know, speaking from my own experience, I'm a person that has dealt with depression and anxiety throughout, dating all the way back to high school.
Yeah.
And that worthlessness feeling and that anxious worry of, disappointing people or whatever that was, that led me to make the choices to not act.
Right.
And that led me to, it took a lot longer to get where I'm at, because I allowed myself to not do those things, or to do things against my better judgment, because I felt like I deserved that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And having that awakening and realizing that I was worth more, and that I deserved more, and that my kids deserved a better me, and they deserve more, that right there is the thing that really started the movement in the direction that I'm headed now. I'm becoming the person that people know today. And that's something that people don't talk about, I think.
Yeah. So I've also suffered from anxiety most of my life. I remember being like 3-4 years old, telling my grandma, I can't breathe.
Aww.
And I look back on that, and I was experiencing anxiety. And that's the biggest thing I worked on in therapy, was how to deal with anxiety and how to do it without medication. I've never been medicated for anything really, but self-care, it all comes back to self-care. And what works for me is hiking and going to the gym, sweating it out, talking to others, because these are things that aren't talked about. And being a social worker, you realize that a lot of other people in the profession and other social workers also suffer from these things, and they have, and that's what kind of like leans them towards social work.
Yeah. Right. It's like the blessing and the curse in the way.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I know how this feels, so I can relate.
Who better to do it than someone who has been through it?
Exactly. I mean, and that's kind of where like knowing, liking, and trusting a person can come from. It's, you know, if I'm needing social services and I'm talking to, and I'm in a situation where I'm experiencing, you know, a time where I'm without a home. Then speaking to someone who's been in that position and has worked through that themselves and is on the other side, or, you know, a victim of domestic violence, someone who has been through that themselves and is on the other side now serving the people in that community, that is so much more impactful and hopeful for people. And not saying that if you haven't been through that, you shouldn't be in the field.
Right.
Of course, you know, everybody's got something. But that's what you're speaking on is the Possibility Festival. I mentioned it briefly at the beginning of the show, and I would love for you to be there.
Okay.
And
what day?
It's July 26th and July 27th. It's the author of one of my favorite books, The Third Door. His name's Alex Benaya, and he went on this after a personal experience with multiple deaths in his family and bouts of depression, anxiety, all that led him to want to learn more about that. And why is that? What's going on here? Why are people feeling so empty? And why? And then as he's learning more about the suicide rates in teens, it's like, what is going on? And connecting the correlation between social media and just
self-worth.
All of that kind of comes to a head of like, okay, what is the problem? The problem is the lack of connection.
Yeah.
And that's a lack of connection with the universe, with the earth, with yourself, with others. So how can we bring that back together and bring that alive? And how can we make it accessible? Because not everybody has access to medical care. Not everyone can see a therapist. Not everybody can go and, you know, run a marathon. Not everybody can do these things. Not everybody has the transportation. Not everybody has the money to go to the seminar, you know, to see Tony Robbins and, you know, all those things. So how can we make it free and accessible? And the answer is make it a weekend in your hometown and utilize this framework and help people make friends that they never would have met if they hadn't gone to the event, and teach about these, you know, different types of methods of self-care and you know, education and play and learning and just all of those things together to make a healthier society. And I would love for you to be there.
Yeah, is this happening in like every city across America? Or?
No, well, one day soon.
One day soon.
A couple years from now.
It sounds like a big project.
We're all going to look back on this moment and say, wow, I remember when that was just like a little thing.
Yeah.
There have been, I think, 5 or 6 over the last 3 years. I've been to 2 of them.
Oh, cool.
Los Angeles, Chicago. There was one in Miami. There was one in New York City. There's actually going to be one in New York City this weekend. Okay. And then Valpo's at the end of July, and then there'll be one in North Carolina.
That's impressive that Valpo got a spot. Is that due to you?
Yes.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah, I've attended 2
Awesome.
and got to know the creator of it, and they were looking for people who wanted to host them, and here we go. And I'm teamed up with a friend in Chicago who's helping kind of promote out in the Illinois world, and we just want to get kind of like the tri-state together. Okay. So, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. I really believe in it, and I think that we'll be seeing a lot more of it, and I think that it is something that can and eventually will be in every city across America, and that's going to help heal our society in this sad time.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah, you can plant the seeds.
You know what? You got to.
You have to.
And we're watering them now. So with that, I want to ask you one final question. Okay. But before I ask that question, where can people find you?
I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I think that's about it.
Yeah. What about your causes that you're involved in? Where can they find those?
So you can find me at We Make Indiana. I'll be at the next chapter meeting on July 14th. I believe that it is at 6 p.m. Garrett Bladd is the organizer for We Make Indiana, so you can reach out to him. We Make Indiana has a Facebook page and an Instagram page.
Awesome.
And then I'm also the housing services manager at CoAction.
Incredible. Yeah. So the last question is looking into the future. we talked kind of a lot about the past. We're talking about what's going on now, and we're kind of teeing up for the next generation. So when thinking about the next generation of community leaders, what advice do you have for them?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I always save the best for last.
So advice to the next community leaders, that you have power, and everyone is a leader. So show up and don't get discouraged. Keep that positivity, because I feel like that is at the heart of leadership. Kind of keep going.
There it is. You have power.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, and there, friends, thank you so much for being here. This is Serena Fugate and Hannah Trueblood on Conversations at WVLP 103.1. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I hope that you took something out of this and you use that to share with others and enrich other people's lives. Have a wonderful evening.